Hey everyone, ready for another deep dive. We've got some pretty diverse stuff to cover today.
Hmm.
We're going to be looking at the ethics of AI that's advancing super rapidly. Then we'll jump to the future of Eswatini's government. And then, believe it or not, we'll wrap things up with a look at South Africa's music scene.
Yeah, quite a mix, right? It really shows how everything's connected. You've got AI development, governance, and even stuff like music, all kind of intertwined.
Exactly. It's all connected. So let's start with the AI stuff. One of our sources um, has some pretty heavy warnings from Eric Schmidt, the former Google CEO.
Oh yeah, him.
Yeah, he's particularly worried about AI potentially being used to design really dangerous biological viruses.
Hmm.
And this all boils down to something called, what was it, emergent behaviors. Ever seen those videos where robot dog figures out how to get through an obstacle course all on its own?
Oh yeah, those are pretty cool.
Yeah, so that's like a perfect example of an emergent behavior. The AI, it picks up abilities that weren't specifically programmed.
It's pretty amazing and also kind of scary, like
Yeah.
it means AI systems can just do stuff we don't expect.
Yeah, exactly. It's like teaching a kid basic math, and then all of a sudden, bam, they're solving like super complicated equations you never even showed them.
Yeah, that's a great analogy. And then imagine that kind of thing, but with bioengineering, that's when it gets really, um, you know, potentially dangerous.
Yeah, for sure. No wonder Schmidt's talking about needing an off switch for these AI systems. He's even comparing it to like controlling nuclear weapons.
Yeah.
We need to figure out a way to just shut them down fast if things start to get out of hand.
Yeah, a kill switch for AI. It's like
Hmm.
the most important thing, but also maybe the hardest thing to figure out. Like, how do you even design something that can shut down a system that's constantly learning, changing?
It's like trying to, I don't know, change a tire on a car that's still speeding down the highway.
Exactly. And of course, we got to keep in mind the benefits of AI. There's so much potential there. So it's a super tricky balance.
Speaking of tricky balances, this source also talks about how Google's changed their whole ethical stance. Remember that don't be evil thing?
Oh, yeah, they've moved away from that.
Yeah, they have.
Mm.
And a lot of people were kind of like, what's going on?
Well, I think it's more complicated than just saying they've abandoned ethics completely. It's more like they're realizing that, the world and especially tech, it's just super complicated. It's not always black and white.
Yeah, Google's a huge company now. They influence like everything, what we see online, how we talk to each other. It's a lot of power.
Right. So I think they're trying to figure out a more nuanced approach to ethics. The world isn't just good and evil. There's a lot of gray areas, and the stuff they do online, it has all these unintended consequences.
Yeah, that makes sense. So do you think this changes like a real change in how they think about ethics? Or are they just reacting to like public pressure and trying to look good?
Honestly, it's probably a bit of both. Some people say they're really trying hard to do the right thing, pointing to their efforts to um, moderate content and fight misinformation and all that.
Yeah.
But then some people are more cynical. Like they say it's all just about avoiding bad press and staying out of trouble with the government. It's hard to know for sure.
True, true. So this leads to a big question. How do we control AI if it like starts doing stuff we don't want? I mean,
Yeah.
the source mentions things like international treaties, kind of like we have for nukes and building in kill switches from the beginning.
Right.
But what if like AI gets so smart that it can just like disable those safeguards or even uh, manipulate us without us realizing it?
Ah, yeah, that's where things get really interesting and kind of freaky. It's this idea called recursive self-improvement.
Yeah.
Imagine an AI that can just keep analyzing its own code and making itself smarter.
Whoa.
It's like giving a student the power to rewrite their own textbook.
Yeah. Like a super powered textbook. Oh.
Exactly. It could lead to breakthroughs we can't even imagine in medicine, energy, you name it. But it also makes it even harder to predict what AI will do.
Right. Yeah. It's
Yeah.
like we're on the edge of something totally new, tons of potential, but also a lot of unknowns.
Exactly. That's why we need more research on AI, like how it makes decisions, the explainability and accountability stuff. We can't just be impressed by how smart it is. We got to know what's going on under the hood.
Yeah, a black box that just spits out answers isn't enough, especially with all this, at stake.
Definitely not. That's a lot to think about, for sure.
Yeah, it is. So, ready to switch gears a bit. We've got a whole other topic to dive into.
Yeah, let's do it.
Okay, so let's move on to Eswatini. It's a country that's trying to figure out this balance between tradition and progress, which is exactly what our source dives into.
Yeah, it's a fascinating case. This small nation in southern Africa, ruled by King Swati III, he has like all the power. And that's led to a lot of people calling for democratic reforms, especially groups like, what was it, Pudemo.
Pudemo, yeah, the People's United Democratic Movement.
Right, them. They want a government that represents the people more. But what's interesting is this source isn't saying get rid of the king completely.
Right. It's more like finding a middle ground, right? Like a system where the king maybe has I don't know, a more symbolic role
Yeah.
and an elected government handles the day-to-day stuff.
Exactly. It's about figuring out a system that respects their traditions, but also makes sure people have a say and that there are, checks and balances so no one can just do whatever they want.
It's a government of national unity. That's what they call it.
Yeah, government of national unity. That's a good way to put it.
So what would that actually look like? I mean, what needs to change to make that happen?
Well, one big thing is they talk about ending the royal family's direct access to government money.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, it's about making things transparent, making sure people can see where the money's going and hold the leaders accountable.
That makes a lot of sense. So it's not just who's in charge, but like how they handle the money.
Yeah.
And this source also talks about outside groups like SADC in South Africa, helping Eswatini figure all this out.
Yeah, that's a tricky one. It's good to have outside pressure, to encourage reforms and stuff, but you also don't want to be seen as like forcing solutions on them. Ultimately, it's got to be the Swazi people who decide their own future.
Absolutely. So what do you think is the most likely outcome here? Is this government of national unity thing actually realistic?
It's tough to say, predicting politics is never easy. The current king doesn't seem too keen on giving up power, and there are people around him who want things to stay the same.
So even with all these calls for change, there's a real chance nothing changes.
It's possible,
Mm,
but the pressure's not going away. The younger generation, they're connected to the world. They see how other countries do things, and they're not afraid to speak up.
right, so even if it's slow, things are moving.
Yeah, it's like those seeds of change have been planted, and they're going to keep growing.
I like that. Even when things seem stuck, there's still hope. All right, ready for one more big shift? Let's head to South Africa, to the world of music.
Sounds good. From AI and governments to music, what a journey.
That's what we do here, right?
Yeah.
Dive deep into all sorts of stuff. So you gave us some sources that focus on the Amapiano genre. It's getting huge, not just in South Africa, but all over. We're going to talk about 3 albums specifically. Hold on, let me get them right. Sam Deep's Hit Factory, Gaba Canal's Boyena, and
T-Man Express's Ikigai, the second samurai.
that's the one. Each album kind of represents a different vibe within Amapiano, from those high-energy club tracks to more soulful, introspective stuff.
Yeah. Boyena is getting a lot of praise for being like spiritually deep. Some people even describe it as a story told through music, takes you on a real journey emotionally. Ikigai, though, it's the sequel to a really popular album, and this one doesn't seem to quite live up to the hype. Like, it's good, but maybe not as groundbreaking as the first one.
Interesting. But honestly, what really got my attention was this whole thing with South African artists and McLarens.
Oh, yeah, that's been all over the news.
Yeah, it's crazy. Like big names, Kemanada, Big Zulu, Master KG. They're all driving around in these super expensive sports cars. What's up with that?
Well, think about it. A McLaren isn't just a car. you know? It's a status symbol. It says, I've made it, I'm successful, I'm part of this elite group.
Right. But is it real wealth? Or is it just for show? Like, are they trying to inspire their fans, or is it more about, like, creating this image on social media?
That's the question, right? It's probably a bit of both. Maybe they genuinely worked hard and want to enjoy their success. But it's also smart marketing in this day and age to have that image, that brand.
Yeah, for sure. But it makes you wonder, what does it say to their fans, especially those who are struggling financially?
It's a valid point. Does it make them think, hey, I can achieve this too? Or does it just highlight the gap between the haves and have nots?
Yeah, that's something to think about. So is this McLaren thing a celebration? Is it a carefully crafted image? Or, like you said, maybe a bit of both?
Maybe. It's definitely more than just cars, that's for sure. It makes you think about what we value, what we aspire to.
It's all connected. All right, we'll have to leave it there for now. But stick around. We've got more to unpack in our deep dive into these fascinating topics.
It really makes you think about those cars, especially in a country like South Africa where wealth and poverty are kind of side by side.
Yeah, it's a good reminder that success, it means different things to different people. And how we express ourselves, like through music or even the cars we drive, it can be seen in so many ways.
Mm.
But let's zoom out for a sec. We've talked AI, governance, now music. All this stuff is changing so fast, and, it makes you wonder about the future we're building. You know what I mean? Well, we've come to the end of another deep dive. We've covered a lot of ground today, from the frontiers of technology to the nuances of governance to the cultural landscape of music. But I think the big takeaway here is about being engaged with the world, but in a mindful way.
I love that. Mindful engagement, whether it's questioning the ethics of AI, exploring different models of governing, or even just being aware of the messages we're getting from music and social media. It's all about staying informed, staying curious, and actively shaping the future we want.
That's it. We all have a part to play in making that future. So keep asking questions, keep exploring, keep diving deep. We'll see you next time.